All right, so we've been talking a bit about how to create HTML. You might be wondering, what standard are we using? Are we writing for HTML 4.01 or for HTML5 or for XHTML? And many of the things I've been showing you are things that will allow your pages to validate as XHTML 1. We're not really dealing with 2. Just to give you a feeling here, which is the best to use. For a long time, I've argued that XHTML was a good way to future-proof your pages, since it looked like we were edging towards XHTML2 as becoming a standard. But very few people jumped over from HTML4 to XHTML. And now we have HTML5 becoming the standard and gaining more and more support among browsers. It's still not quite there yet. I think it's still worth doing things in the earlier standard for a little while longer, but at the very end of the course we'll touch on some of the things that HTML5 brings. One of the things HTML5 does is kind of takes over from XHTML and HTML4, and so right now, I guess the end of this is it doesn't really matter. There's no really good reason to push you towards XHTML, because both standards of HTML4 and XHTML are supported in the HTML5, XHTML5 standard. If now that sounded like gobbledygook, welcome to the club. Some of this is just not worth diving deeply into. Some of it's worth cutting and pasting and making sure things are right. And so at the very beginning here, I want to touch on that. Some things that we need to cut and paste into our document just to make it valid, just so that browsers know what to do with it. So let's go back over to our document. You'll remember it's here. I've actually made a small change to it that we'll see here in just a second. That I unintentionally made a mistake earlier in our videos, and I intentionally added one as well. All right, so the first thing we need to do, I lied to you when I said the HTML was the beginning of the document. It is the beginning of the HTML document, but before the HTML starts, we need to have something declared called a doctype. Now, what does a doctype do? Basically, a doctype tells the browser what standard you're using when you're writing this stuff. And you'll notice that I didn't type that. I did copy and paste it because I can never remember what this stuff is. I copy and paste this from a document. And if you're ever wondering what it should be, you can always go out there and just open up a web page, because most good web pages that are professionally designed, will have a doctype declaration at the very top, and you can just copy and paste it over. Here, the doctype we're using is XML 1.0. We could have used 1.1, or we could have used HTML4, and we're saying it's strict, which means we're actually following the rules, and we're not cheating anywhere along the line. We're not, for example, including deprecated tags, things like font, and we haven't made any mistakes. We're telling the browser we're actually following the rules, and that's a good thing. What else do we need? Well, we actually need to say a little bit in here about what we're going to do. Add an attribute to the HTML itself, saying what is this particular form of HTML, and we'll do that here by should look familiar. So there are a number of things that we've added in here that are declaring that this is an English document and that it's an XHTML document. Again, this is just added on top of the doctype declaration. That's all I'm going to touch on for now. Everything else we've done is already XML standard. Well, actually, with one exception, I think down here under form, generally just keep everything lowercase. If you're using HTML4, there's a tradition to use some things in uppercase or even all tags in uppercase, but for XHTML, everything needs to be lowercase. But this should be fine. So let's go ahead and save this, and we'll look at it in our browser. No changes there. All looks good. You'll note down here that I have the Validator set up to make sure that things are working. There's an online validator. W3C puts a validator online, and I recommend you use that. It's a good thing to use. Here we haven't uploaded it yet. Remember, we haven't gone to FTP and uploaded this to the site yet. So we're just checking it in our local browser. And one of the nice things about the little plugin, the HTML validator plugin, is that we can check it without having to upload it. So let's take a look and see. It says that there are some errors here, or not some errors, but some warnings. One of the warnings is that is in this line right here. It says that we have a Q for the quote, but it's missing the close quote. Now, the truth is, this is the error I introduced because I wanted to talk about it. This is a nesting error. What that means is that it that just like Russian dolls are nested one inside of another, you often have many layers of nests kind of going inward of tagged sections of your document. What you can't have is one ending before the other one ends. They can't, you can't have either a nesting doll is inside the other one or it's inside the other one. They can't be inside each other. And so in this case, if you take a look here, we have the beginning of it starting here, but then ending here, and then the beginning here, starting and ending here. This is a no-no. This is something we cannot do, so we're going to fix that. We can't fix it here because this is not an editable document. We have to go back to our document to fix it. So we'll change this so that the Q, see, we got the Q ending, but it's these should not overlap. So let's fix this so that we have the end of the quote and then the end of the paragraph. So there's one of our errors. Let's see what else we've got. Bring that up. There we go. Again, it's trying to fix it. Here we made another mistake that's like that. The block quote is actually a block, and so it shouldn't be inside another block. And we'll talk more about this when we talk about divs and spans. But block quote is a block element. That means it comes out as a separate block, and right now we have a block inside of a block, which doesn't make sense. So again, we need to move the paragraph to end before the block quote begins. And then we have a block here and a block here. Don't worry too much about this now. We'll talk about it more when we talk about the difference between inline and block elements. What else do we have? Here I just accidentally put in an extra TD. You only need one TD to close out that TD, and so it says there's an extra one there, and so I can delete it. Thank you. That's again the problem with the P. It says that it's just telling us that we've got the Doctype there. This is just informational. It's not an error or a warning. So we've managed to fix all of our problems on this page, which is great. So now if we go back and save it, reload it, and try again, you'll see there's a little green check mark now that says everything is good. And there we go. In all of the activities moving forward, I'm going to ask, and more than ask, require that you don't have any errors in your page and that you've run it through a validator and it gets a clean run through the validator. Now, it's almost impossible to get it perfectly clean. There are some small warnings that might fly up, but generally, and so if that's the case, then fine. But if it's something like this where we can fix it and you can get the green check mark, that's great. Second, even though if it checks through here, you still should run it through when you have a final site. Run it through the online validator because that has the most current standard. This actually you're probably going to get the same reaction, but it's good to get in the habit of checking that as well. So what that means is that we have a standard site, that we've met the standards for HTML construction, which is great. We get we don't get a gold star, but we get a green check mark, which is good. And it means that it can be used across devices. So, and then next time we're going to add in a couple more tags, the div tag and the span tag, and talk a little bit about IDs and classes to prepare us for CSS and presentation in part.